Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Madison. I am not Charles McLymans. I'm Jason Hillstrip. Thank you. Is that a good thing? I'll let Charles know you all applauded. Well, you should applaud for Charles because he's currently on vacation in Florida. And he sent, I would say, Pat, that was not very nice of a note saying it's 87 and sunny. It was not 87 and sunny here yesterday, so yes. And we'll tell him it was. The snow will be melted by the time he's back. Anyway, thank you all for joining us. It's great to see so many of you here today. We've got an excellent speaker. Our opening music will be led by Darren Harris, who will lead us in the singing of the national anthem with our great friend, Elaine Mishner, on the keyboard. And then Darren will lead us in the singing of our feature song, Hail to the Chief.
Okay, so here's the thing. Usually when you have this Star Spangled Banner thing, national anthem, you just all are silent and you listen to me. So please don't do that. It's not going to be very nice. So please, everyone join in as we now sing this national anthem of ours and be proud of it. Good. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly stream. Here we go. And the rocket's red glow, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. That was great. Well done. All right, so I scoured the internet to find the actual singing of Hail to the Chief. It doesn't exist. So what we're going to do right now is something that almost has not been done before. I checked in with our speaker. He also said he's never heard it sung other than MASH back in the 70s, right? And they didn't sing the version we're going to sing. So I'd like to introduce this by saying Hail to the Chief is a personal anthem of the President of the United States. It's derived from the original Scottish Gaelic melody, and the song was set to music around 1812 by the songwriter James Sanderson, who was an English violinist and conductor. The long-standing tradition of playing Hail to the Chief began in 1815 when the song was played to honor both George Washington and the end of the War of 1812. So there you go, a little history. And with that, we'll now attempt to sing Hail to the Chief. So follow along. Here we go. Hail to the chief we have chosen for the nation. Hail to the chief, we salute him one and all. Hail to the chief as we pledge cooperation in proud fulfillment of a great noble call. Yours is the aim to make this country grander. This you will do, this is our strong belief. Hail to the one we selected as commander. Hail to the president. Hail to the chief. You did it. Well done. Wow. So, Darren, which MASH character sang that? Are you Hawkeye Pierce, or who are you? Good question. Good question. Well, thank you for... There you go. Well, thank you again, Delane, and thank you to Darren for our song today and our opening music. Today's meeting is sponsored by Brian Baskin, Rick Pearson, and Jason Barron in memory of Rotarian Dick Pearson. We want a short video now about Dick.
Say goodnight, Dick. Indeed. Indeed. Now, we'll welcome our guests with Hillary Cleese, who has just recently joined the club and decided she's going to announce all the guests. Way to jump right in month 2. Welcome, Hillary.
So guests, as I read your name, please stand. I'll read the name of the guest and the name of their host, and then at the end, we'll welcome them all as a group. Jerry Sternberg is the guest of Bob Block. Rachel Graham is the guest of Joel Rivlin. Henrik Heda is the guest of Maria Heda. Paula Bonner is the guest of Martha Vukalik, Boston. Gail Getz and Joe Getz are here from the Rotary District 5960E Club of Cultural Exchange. Peter Welch is the guest of Susan Schmitz. Eric Knight is the guest of Victor Rodriguez. Patrick Smith is here as the guest of Wes Sparkman. Kim Herlitzka is the guest of Sarah Deteen. Lauren Goff is here as the guest of Terry Morosky. Susan Mayer is here with Ken Mayer, our speaker. And Sean Paff is here as the guest of Carl Hampton. Welcome, one and all, to our guests.
And thank you, Hillary, for announcing all of our guests. Is the mic, is it louder?
Yes.
All right, good. I'm pretty loud, so good. It's good to see all of our guests here, including one of my neighbors. You can guess which one of those guests is my neighbor. That's a fun game. All right, moment of gratitude. Today's moment of gratitude is being presented by Bob Dindorf. He said he was going to do this all in a cappella. Is that true, Bob? Perfect. Bob retired as the executive director of philanthropy for Madison College Foundation. He joined the Rotary Club of Madison in 1998 and served as our president from 2008 to 2009. Here's Bob's moment of gratitude.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again. Oh, it is loud. This is good. Well, connect, grow, and serve are our watchwords, so I hope you'll find some of that in this mess I'm going to try to share with you in less than 3 minutes. To start with, I'm really grateful to be a participant in a club that is making an impact on the world, both in this room, on one another as we develop a community of Rotarians, and on the larger world. I'd like to speak today about an esteemed club tradition that you just experienced, actually, and that's the music that we are involved with, I will say it that way, each week. I know there are a number of folks who would prefer to be great audience members and enjoy the music, and then there are others of us who are the performers. And it is really a thrill. As I mentioned last week, I stood up and we all sang an a cappella version of not My Country, Tis of the America the Beautiful, and it's a really terrific experience to stand up here and listen to you all sing, whether it is coming through to you in the audience or not. Music has long been a distinguished feature of our weekly meetings, starting in 1916, actually. Our club began incorporating music as part of the program, usually in the form of sing-alongs. And if you want more information, all of you were new members at one time, and so you should have a copy of the history books. And there's some fascinating reading in there, and isn't that a lovely image? Well, Jane does that to people. Music fully blossomed in the 1920s, and there was a beloved and talented musician, Ed Gordon, who led us and arranged for the appearance also of highly talented community members to come in, provide a lot of extra entertainment outside the club. UW band director Ray Dvorak was our music leader from the 30s into the 50s, and the transition from the beloved Ed Gordon to Dvorak was rather rocky. Apparently, club members experienced mild dissatisfaction with Dvorak's attempt at replacing Gordon's old song with newer songs. And if you know Rotarians, you can imagine that mild dissatisfaction is practically fisticuffs, I'm sure. But things were ironed out and compromises made, and Dvorak continued leading the music into the 1950s, when another UW musician and personality, Don Vagley, is that vaguely familiar? I'm channeling my Charles McClymans. Public radio listeners certainly are familiar with him. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, right? That was one of our club members, and a beloved one as well. He was regular music leader until Jeff Bartell arrived in 1979 to take up the tunes. And thankfully, the club was able to admit women as members in 1987 so that Angela Bartell could join him both as a Rotarian and as a song leader. So again, for more information, please look into keep that on your bedstand so you can enjoy the reading. These days, we have a very highly engaged, I would call it, and enlarged music committee led currently by Robert Reed. I saw him walking around, and he did this shtick last week. We have been rightfully, I think, giving attention to the lyrics that we use in our songs. We have to pay attention to the genres of music that are available. And also, we've been more intentional about regularly scheduling musicians from the larger community so that we have a greater variety of musical enrichment. And so you will hear an introduction this morning that I'm thrilled about, and that's Claire Canapel, new member. And I'm not going to say any more about you, but pay attention to her introduction. I'm also grateful for my son, Neil, who you saw up here a few weeks ago, a fellow Rotarian. He shared his own gratitude, which was amazing to me, having grown up with him, or he grew up with me. But he is finding value on his own path as a Rotarian, and I know that in addition, is Rick Pearson here? Rick is unable to be here, but I enjoyed some great hospitality at Dick and Noel's home over the years, hosting a Rotary events, and we're thrilled to have Rick, another offspring of Rotarians. So as we look for new members, and we're thrilled to introduce some new ones today, sometimes they're just sitting across from the dining room table with you or next to you on the couch, so keep that in mind as you go along. And finally, I would like to just something that happened spontaneously last week. While walking together after Rotary down the street, Terry Anderson, Davey Onowski, and I realized that the three of us served as presidents from 2007 to 2010. Not all at the same time, one at a time. But we have became fast friends then, and we've continued to do projects together. So we are three past presidents, connected, grown, and served. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you for all you've done for the club, and thank you for channeling Charles McClymans. I channeled it by just putting on a tie today for you all. All right, we are excited to, this is not going well. We're excited to welcome 5 new members. That is going well. We've got 5 great new members who are joining the club today. We're going to start with Rowan Childs. Please stand with your sponsor, Terry Morosky and Jason Ilstrup. Rowan is Executive Director of the Madison Reading Project, which she founded to address literacy discrepancies in Dane County. She was born in London, England, and came to Madison in 2003 from New York City. She makes her home in Mount Horeb, where she has 2 teenage children. She holds a degree in Arts and Literature from Coe College. She serves on the Board of Directors of the Mount Horeb Area Historical Society Driftless Historia and the National Book Access Association. She was a recipient of the People's Choice of Wisconsin Innovation Award in 2020 and was named one of Brava Women to Watch in 2020 as well. She enjoys traveling, reading, and gardening. Please remain standing, Rowan. Next, we'll welcome Eric Fulcomer. He is sponsor Kaleem Care. Please stand. Eric is the president of the Wisconsin Association of Independent Colleges and Universities. He is a former Rotarian of Bluffton and Pandora, Ohio, from 2004 to 2011, where he served as club president, and is also a Rotarian in Rockford, Illinois, from 2014 to 2022. He's originally from Dayton, Ohio, and came to Madison with his wife, Andrea, from Rockford, Illinois, in 2022. They make their home in Oregon and have 2 adult children. He holds a bachelor's degree from the Eastern Michigan University, a master's degree from Bowling Green State University, and a doctorate degree from the University of Toledo. He holds an honorary doctorate from the University of Rockford as well. He is a member of several associations, including the American Council on Education, the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, and the Wisconsin Technological Council. In addition, he was appointed by governors He was appointed to the Governor's Early Childhood Advocacy Council, as well as the Governor's Council for Workforce Investment. Eric holds U.S. presidential history and travel as his hobbies. Welcome, Eric. Please remain standing. Next, we have Marie Justice and her sponsor, Christy Goforth. Please stand. Marie is the owner of Community Cleaners and Justice Media. She was born in Vista, California, and now makes her home in Madison. She serves on the boards of the Farley Center for Peace and Justice and Sustainability and the Wisconsin Youth Symphony Orchestra. She is co-host of America's longest-running tourism series, Discover Wisconsin. Reading, hiking, traveling, and spending time with family and friends are among her favorite pastimes. Welcome, Marie. Next up, we have Claire Canapel and her sponsors, Dick Lovell and Oscar Morales. Please stand. Claire is the co-creator and executive director of From the Front Row, LLC, which helps musicians share their work with the Madison community. She was born in San Jose, California, and came to Madison in 2013. She holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of Virginia and was recipient of the Art and Literature Lab's 2022 Jazz Development Grant for an original educational jazz composition program, which she developed. Claire is an active volunteer with Freewheel, a community bike space in Madison. She is a double bassist and a pianist. Claire has served in a number of bands and genres during her time in Madison, including jazz, indie rock, classical, folk. Her current musical project is Big Tooth, a 5-piece bluegrass band. She loves biking in all weather, me too, playing pickup soccer, and slowly burying herself in a pile of books to read. Welcome, Claire. Last up, will Kevin Mehring and his sponsor, Laura Gallagher, please stand. Kevin is the founder of Impact Christian Academy, and he's originally from West Allis and now makes his home in Madison with his wife, Shelley. They have 4 teenage sons. Kevin earned a bachelor's degree in chemistry from UW-Madison and an MBA degree from Marquette. He's a member of the International Probiotic Association, where he serves as vice president and president. Kevin is the founder of Bridge to Brighter, Inc., which focuses on youth who are in and have aged out of foster system and helping them to transition to adulthood. Kevin received the 2023 Alumni Merit Award from Marquette University High School. He enjoys Badger sports, coaching his sons, golf, and travel. Please join me in welcoming all of our new members and saying thank you to the sponsors, to our great new members of the Downtown Rotary Club. What a fantastic group of new Rotarians. Please, let's all help them out and welcome them, say hi to them, sit next to them at lunch, make them feel part of our community. That's how we grow our club. All right. Next up, we're going to celebrate birthdays with a bit of wisdom, compliments of Rotary's mission. We encourage members to give a gift to the Foundation's Community Grants Endowment Fund to represent their age, rounded up to 100, to our Synergy Scholarship Fund. On April 1st, we have Ron Yankee. On April 1st, Bill Zeineman. On April 2nd, Nick Kern, our club's assistant treasurer. On April 2nd, we have Philip Petrowski. On April 2nd, past President Carol Toussaint, who was born on Election Day. April 4th, Marcio Sierra, Jr., and April 4th, Steve Wallman. On April 5th, Loretta Himmelsbach. On April 6th, Dave Baskerville. And on April 6th, Hillary Parker. Thanks to our celebrants for their contribution to the Madison Rotary Foundation Community Grants Endowment Fund. Please join me in singing Happy Birthday to our members. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rotarians. Happy birthday to you. Yes. A little extra soul today from Elaine Mishler. Let's give her another round of applause. I love it. I love it. All right. You all are very busy. Funky. Yes, funky. Thank you. President-elect Anthony Gray. Is that your title? What's your title? I don't know what your title is. No one knows your title is. Yes. He'll be president again in 2032. Speaking of members in the news, you all have been very busy representing our community and doing great projects throughout the Madison area. And number one on the list, ironically, is Anthony Gray, who was interviewed on CNN Live. Wow, that's setting the bar high. On April 2nd about the presidential election. Jason Ilstrup, that's me, was interviewed on Channel 15 about Regent Street development. Joe Lanis, Oscar Morales, Sandy Morales, and Cheryl Whitkey were pictured in the Capital City Hughes article, Breaking New Artistic Ground, the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra's release of Harmonies in Black. Gavin Luter was interviewed on WPR on March 8th about the University Alliance, adding driftless area projects to their outreach programs. Charles McLymans, don't know who he is, was interviewed on Television Wisconsin segment Live It Up about Rotary Club of Madison. Well done. I do know who he is. That was a joke that nobody laughed at. All right. Aaron, this is a total train wreck. Aaron Mullins, not a train wreck, great human being, was quoted in an article about recent grants for the Foundation for Dane County Parks Get Outside program. Lynn Sexton, another great member, was pictured and quoted in Business Magazine covering her story titled Amazing a Grace. CEO Lynn Sexton leads the largest 100 hospice expansion. Cheryl Whitkey was interviewed on WISC's Channel 3 and WMTV Channel 15 for the Battle of the Badges held on March 16th at the Madison Ice Arena. Let's congratulate all of those folks that are doing amazing work in our community. I guess this is not a complete train wreck because I'm now 2 minutes ahead of schedule. Take that, Charles. All right. Now on to our program. Now we're only a minute. I just took a minute away. You're welcome. All right. We are very excited about our timely speaker today. I got the chance to connect with him at lunch, and we are very excited about what he has to say. Our speaker today is Ken Mayer, who is a professor of political science at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He received his PhD from Yale University in 1988 and came to UW after working as a consultant in the Washington, D.C. offices of the Rand Corporation. He estimates that since starting at UW in 1989, this is amazing, he taught somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 students. So I said, we got a big crowd here today. He says, no, you've never been to American Government 101, which is what, 700 students. Professor Mayer has written extensively on the presidency, Congress, election administration, redistricting, and campaign finance. He has been the co-author of the leading textbook on the American presidency and is a frequent expert witness in voting rights, election administration, and redistricting litigation around the country in both state and federal courts. We look forward to your presentation today, Professor Mayer, and we have made a contribution to the Rodeo International Polio Plus Fund as a way to say thank you for speaking with us today. Rodeo International? Let the highlight reel begin now. The best part is, I'm like the one member in this club who was actually given the Polio Plus vaccine to the mouths of children in Africa, and I can't even pronounce Rotary. It's not about me, though. Anyway, we will have time for Q&A, we promise. Please remember, it is question and answers. Let's welcome Professor Ken Mayer to our podium.
So it is a pleasure to be here. I've seen so many people I know, colleagues from the university, former students. I was joking, I feel like I'm a member already. Although the last time I came to a meeting was in 2002, so I don't think I am up to date with the attendance policy. But what I'm going to talk about today is a message of modesty in our ability to forecast what is likely to happen in November. Anytime someone gets up to talk about the presidential election, the punchline, what everybody wants to know is who is going to win. And there are industries set up to arbitrage that. And I will tell you what the answer is. Nobody knows. What I would like to do is to give you a framework, a structure to how to think about the election and the outcomes and where this election sort of fits in history, parts of it that feel particularly unusual, a little bit stressful. And I also confess the last time I spoke to this group was in the summer of 2002 when I was talking about the 2000 presidential election. And I actually said something that was not true. I told the group that I am certain this is going to be the weirdest presidential election in my lifetime, which gives you a sense of what my forecasting capacities are. So I'm just going to give you a couple of heuristics in thinking about the election. One of the ways of thinking about any election we are in the middle of is to think about what it looks like if there were no names. How you would describe the process if we didn't know who the candidates are. Of course, we do know who the candidates are. Here we have an incumbent president who is cruising to nomination. All of the noise you might have heard about uninstructed or other candidates who are running, it's all noise that we know what the outcome is. The out party had multiple contenders, which was very quickly winnowed to one, to a front runner, with everybody else dropping out. Everything else is noise, and that, if we think about it that way, this looks like any other presidential election, that you have an in-party incumbent, an out-party. The process looks like it did in 2020, 2016, 2012, 2008, 1932. The question I put to you, what if this is wrong? What if this frame of thinking about this as politics as usual is completely wrong? What does that do? Well, we can put some names to this. The last time a defeated incumbent ran in the next election was actually 140 years ago. And it was Grover Cleveland, who was elected in 1884, lost in 1888 to Chester Arthur, and then ran and won again in 1892. So that's one weird sort of unusual territory. Neither major party nominee is terribly popular. We have Biden, who has been at 39 to 40% presidential approval rating since probably the fall of 2021. We also have the non-incumbent running, who is kind of a quasi-incumbent, who has a 42% favorability rating. This is not quite the same as presidential popularity rating, but it's the most analogous bit that we've got. We have one of the nominees who is facing multiple criminal trials, 4 different jurisdictions, and the count was 91, now it's 88. There's a trial that's scheduled to begin in about a week and a half, and that puts us way into unprecedented category. And that's not the only thing that is truly unprecedented about this. I mean, I get tired of saying this, that if I made a rubber stamp that said truly unprecedented, and I was using it to stamp every time something happened, and I'd say, well, that's truly unprecedented, I would need a new stamp. We also have animation problems. We have that candidate who is openly using authoritarian language and violent campaign rhetoric, and creating false narratives that have become dominant in how a good chunk of the electorate thinks about their allegiances, thinks about their identity. When I'm talking to students about what I mean when I talk about political identity and how that people come to see that as defining them in a sense that is almost internal and very resistant to change. The closest analogy I can think of, who's your favorite football team? Right? And most people will say the Packers, the wretched, unfortunate souls who say the Bears. But it's something that you cannot convince someone that view is wrong, because it is part of who they are. And these narratives have become dominant. We don't really know what the effect is going to be in 2020, but we can see this, and it shows up in surveys, and it shows up in how people talk about politics. This is the part that's not normal. It is routine that political elites, and particularly the people who are running for office, will characterize this election as the most important election ever. It was true in 2020, 2016. It goes back. I show students campaign rhetoric from the election of 1800, which it used to be that current rhetoric was tame compared to what people were saying in 1800, but this is not a new phenomenon. But my colleagues in the political science department and elsewhere who study comparative politics are generally of the view that we've seen this before. We see this in other countries. We see this in enduring democracies, some new democracies, and we can observe what has happened, and it typically does not end well. This is not a uniquely American phenomenon. The rise of polarization, the rise of extremism is happening in countries all over the world. And we're just not talking about places like Turkey and Hungary that don't have decades and centuries of democratic traditions. We see it in France. We see it in the Nordic countries and Australia and South America. There is something going on, a stressor to the system that is beyond the specifics of American politics. There are even names to these, called democratic backsliding, that countries and institutions with long democratic traditions, those are under stress. Competitive authoritarianism, a term that comparativists use to describe systems like Turkey and Hungary, where there is, to an outsider, there is a veneer of democratic politics. There are elections. There are people who compete for political power, but it's not meaningful. It's not a true competition. And one of the reasons that it feels so stressful to be watching contemporary politics, or contemporary politics for a while, is the question is, are we on the cusp of something like this? And the answer is, we don't really know, but the pieces are in place. Question I routinely ask my students: what would you see if you saw what we observe in American politics? What would you say if you saw this in another country? And it's a way of kind of crystallizing and identifying what you think is important and what you think is noise. And it also is a way that, obviously a lot of this depends on what your priors are, where you are aligned on support or opposition to particular candidates. But this is a way of trying to organize our thought processes in a way that can achieve a kind of meta state where you're thinking about things outside of that particular set of priors. So we're still having problems with the animation. There we go. So, and this is not new. Right. This is, if you go back and talk about the the people who founded American democratic institutions, the framers, they actually had a word for this. They called it virtue, or a spirit, or the spirit. It's funny that the democratic theorists had spirit of republicanism, and it works as long as you use lowercase d's and r's. They called it virtue, and this is what Madison. This is my fault. I have a capability of ruining anything related to Microsoft and PowerPoint. But this is what Madison wrote in Federalist 55, and there are other elements of this as well with some of the other pieces that Hamilton wrote. It's actually kind of, just as a side note, there's actually a little bit of ambiguity who actually wrote Federalist 55. The consensus among historians is that it is Madison, but there are other accounts say might have been Hamilton. The nice thing about thinking that it's Hamilton is it gives you some songs to hum along to while you're reading this. And you know, the principle here is that a democratic little d system relies on a sense of virtue, not just among the elected officials, but also among voters, among the electorate, a sense of commitment to a sense of ideals that extends beyond immediate political self-interest, as imperfect as that has been implemented in American history. It's a crucial part of what political theorists call the democratic bargain, that the essence of a democratic system, again with a little d, is that competitors in the U.S., the major parties, compete for political power. There is an election. The loser in the election, whether or not they are the incumbent or not, that they peacefully and willingly transfer the legitimate authority to govern to the winner, and they go and reorganize and attempt to compete on another day in the next election. So that sort of describes the difference between where we are and where it feels like ideally we should be. Question is, how did we get here? How did we arrive at this state of politics when these long-standing democratic norms are, frankly, asymmetrically, there's an asymmetrical commitment to them now? So, how did we get here? Well, one of the virtues of democratic politics is that it punishes suboptimal strategies. You take extremist views, you take things that depart from long-standing norms, that you are punished at the polls. And the incentive is, assuming sufficient virtue among the electorate, that that doesn't work, and that you don't exercise legitimate power. But that's not so true anymore, that these strategies have actually worked, and it's not just in the last 4 years that these kinds of strategies have been around for, in the modern context, for 30 years. But that doesn't really give us a causal argument about how did we get here. So here are some speculative possibilities, and I say this with the beginning that anybody who is younger than me, you are welcome to get off my lawn. How did we get here? We have changes in media coverage, and this is my wife Susan is here, that she does not like watching the news with me because I'm constantly complaining about the horse race coverage of politics, the both sidesism, and this is not a new thing. This has been going on. People who study elections have been going on for decades. The rise of social media as a mobilizing and identity reinforcing force. My colleagues in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication who study this, they actually call it an ecosystem where it serves to promulgate ideas and allow people to isolate themselves, and so you are surrounded by, frankly, an engineered. It just is sort of a generation of outrage as a mobilizing principle, and it works. We have some more fundamental problems over the last 15 years in particular about the erosion or the ending of the long-standing regulatory structures for campaign finance, which allow essentially unlimited, unregulated, even undisclosed spending in elections at both national and subnational levels. We have demographic changes. One of the things my colleagues who study public opinion, they note that this is in part, the claim is that this is in part a reaction to loss of status of longstanding groups who have been accustomed for 150, 200 years. We have asymmetric polarization. It's not that both sides have moved away from the center. It is asymmetric, that most of these phenomena, not all of them, but most of these involve Republicans and the Republican Party. And reality television, which is one of my, again, it's like I probably watch more television than I should, but I cannot abide reality television. And it just seems to me that, that democracy ends and the republic ends, it's going to be the fault of reality television and social media. And so I'm not really kidding. And here is the crucial part, that I haven't even gotten to things like artificial intelligence and technological changes that alter the way that we organize ourselves. But our politics has not caught up with these developments, how the norms and the guardrails have proven insufficient to contain these developments. So let me conclude on an even less optimistic note. What does this mean for 2024? What this means is that it is uncertain, that we don't know. And I encourage you, as you think about and you assimilate political information, to try to step away from thinking about it solely in terms of what's going to happen, who's going to win, who's ahead, who's down. And the reason is that our forecasting models, and you can think of this as 538 or any of the other groups that sort of weirdly will assign a specific probability to a single outcome, which there's an element of weirdness there. But all of those models, or even the heuristics that presidents at 40% or below don't get reelected, those are all premised on stable relationships between the inputs and the outputs, that we can look and say, over time, this is what we have observed, that these inputs have tended to produce these outputs. And if we think about it in 2024, the underlying assumption is that those underlying relationships are the same as they were, and that we can accurately measure the underlying quantities of interest, in this case particularly thinking about public opinion polls giving us reliable measures of what the underlying quantities are. There is no forecasting model that I've ever seen that can see around corners, that can estimate truly unanticipated events, or can estimate the underlying likelihood that those relationships will have changed. It's almost impossible to do. If you could do it, I would tell you how to do it. We could all go into the markets and we would all be billionaires in a couple of weeks. And there are so many corners in 2024 that we have to be, I think, we have to be modest in thinking about our ability to make these projections, and frankly, change what we focus on to the horse race, to what the underlying issues and values are. So, which is a fancy scholarly way of saying it's hard to tell. And I realize that is not terribly satisfying, but that's where we are. So I will stop here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'll just go from from my right to my left. So here, thank you.
Thank you very much. When you were talking about James Tye, hello, thank you. Looking at the small v in virtue and looking at religion, where the greatest generation probably went to some sort of religious service every week. The baby boomers, maybe 75%. I'm Generation X. I might be a Christmas, because it was a Christmas, Easter, and then the next generation. And so virtue being taught at some sort of religious service on a regular basis, and virtue and elections, are those connected in any way?
Actually, they're not, in part because the way the framers used the term, who were, in terms of the government structures they created, were almost entirely secular. But the way that language was used, virtue did not mean the modern virtue. They meant a spirit of public spiritedness, the spirit of little r republicanism. So it's not the same thing as what we would think of as moral virtue. So the trend you have identified of over a long enough time, sort of decreasing attendance at religious services, and there are different ways of measuring that. I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that's a causal factor in this, because we're talking about a truly secular phenomenon, as opposed to one that, I mean, I'm not a religious scholar, but one of the distinctions is that you're talking about a commitment to a set of secular principles versus a faith, right? And I think it's important to keep those two things distinct. But what Madison was talking about, and what Hamilton and the rest of, even the ones who were sort of deists like Jefferson, they were talking about virtue the same way they talk about passion. When they say passion, they don't mean passion, in the sense that we mean it now. They mean commitment to an issue, political beliefs.
Over here.
Thank you. Hi, Peter Gray. Before I ask my question, I just need to say, tonight is episode 3 of Top Chef Wisconsin, and you can pry my reality television from my cold, dead hands.
Yeah, that's...
I'm not sure if that's allowed with asking.
Well, but my question is actually about your comment about reality television. I'm not a fan of, there's a lot of reality television that I'm not a fan of, but it never occurred to me to think about it as a threat to American democracy on the level of the other things that you put up on that slide. So say more about that, please.
Yeah, so there's an author I follow. He's a former professor at I think it was either the Naval War College or named Tom Nichols, who's written about, he wrote a book called about the end of expertise. And one of his theories, or one of his arguments, is that there have been broad social developments that make everybody feel like they, or even Isaac Asimov's, that the criticism of democratic politics is that people think that their ignorance is as good as your knowledge, and there's an element of truth to that, but that's kind of built into the notion of equity and the franchise. So what I was talking about, and what Nichols talks about, is that Top Chef is not the problem. I'm thinking more about the Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, basically, the premise, as I see it, of reality television, which is different when you wind up producing something that you can actually eat, which puts in a different category. You take a bunch of people, you put them in a completely artificial environment, and then you watch them be terrible to each other. That is and often it's scripted, and it's sort of, and it just seems to me that is not something worth celebrating. But I'm old and increasingly cranky, and so yeah. I mean, I will carve out an exemption for reality cooking shows, because you can get something at the end that is actually sustaining. Okay.
Hi, Ed Hughes. Thanks. You've
persuasively shown us that we're kind of in terra incognita. Can you identify, you mentioned Tom Nichols, can you identify any other writers or commentators or experts who seem to have valuable insights on our current scene and who we might want to look into?
Well, here is a list that I have in my head. And these are people, some of whom I know, who I have frequently relied on for information. And it's going to seem like a partisan list, even though it's not. It's a mix of liberals and conservatives. One of the people who I find most interesting is Charlie Sykes, who, he's a never-Trumper, so that's out, but he is not remotely someone who you can classify as not conservative. I understand that you had, Martha, was it Michael Lodig? Kastmeyer lecture, where Michael Lodig, former judge, and other people who have written. Sometimes they're wrong. Lodig was writing about he thought that Trump was ineligible under Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, and so. But the key for me is assimilating information from people where your priors may not be the same as theirs. Meaning that these are people who, if you are a conservative, you seek out thoughtful people who are not conservative, or you are open to information that comes from people who might have different priors than you. And I think that's what I encourage my students to do. That's what I try to do. And that doesn't mean you have to have an open tolerance for nonsense, or as the old saying goes, you shouldn't have a mind so open that your brain falls out. But if all we do is read and accept information that we already agree with, that's not a situation that is conducive to learning. So I think we can talk later. I have people who but the idea that you should read someone because I tell you to read someone, I'm not sure if I would buy that.
Here you go.
Yes.
Hello, Herman Bauman. So both parties and candidates seem to be not trying to come up with better ideas than each other, but trying to vilify each other. And anytime a new policy comes out, it seems as if not only are you wrong, but because you're evil, but because you hold a particular view. Are candidates leading the population to this great divide, or are voters encouraging the candidates in this area? What's cause and effect?
So a couple of things. One, I think it's not quite right to say this is something that both sides are doing. That there are a range of things, and you can identify examples on both sides. But I find the notion that it is equivalent that there are no ideas. There are ideas. There's been a lot of legislation that has been passed in the last 3 years, and some of it that we might not even be aware of. It is the nature of politics to go after each other, and the difficult part is distinguishing between what we'll call tactical political rhetoric, where if I'm running for office against you, unless we both appear at a debate that I'm moderating and I wind up ending by forcing you to say nice things about the other person, that's generally not going to happen. But distinguishing between tactical rhetoric and exaggeration and hyperbole, or frankly outright falsehoods, versus this person does not have your interests at heart, they don't care about you, trying to frame what people are thinking about, and that's not ultimately the voters evaluate the alternatives that they are presented with. So I'm looking at my watch, it's 1:05. So thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thank you very much, Professor Mayer. We really do appreciate you adding to the discussion here at Rotary Club of Madison. Thank you to all of you for attending today's meeting. I hope you can join us next week where we hear from Armando Ibarra on generations of change, labor migration, settlement, and social transformation. As we close the meeting, as Charles always does, let's recite the four-way test together. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? We are adjourned.